Thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope that all of you are safe and well. My name is Maggie. I'm the incubation and ecosystem lead at the Mills Fabrica, and I'm also the facilitator for today. Welcome to the Combating Coronavirus webinar series by the Mills Fabrica. This is the first talk in the series. In this webinar, we'll be talking about how to use retail tech to manage inventory. You will learn about two key things. The first one is how to minimize supply chain disruptions through data forecasting. And the second one is how to leverage new opportunities by tapping into the fast-growing resale market. Today, we have invited two of our incubatees and portfolio companies, AJ from Chain of Demand and Felix from Refloat, to share with us on the topics. Sorry. Okay. So before we begin, let us share a little bit more about the objective of the webinar series. So we aim to help businesses to understand and respond to market issues, and we share best practices and relevant topics. At the same time, we would also like to understand your company's top priorities and KPIs, for example, in increasing sales and reducing costs in the current situation. This information will allow us to better plan for the next webinars. So we do appreciate if you could fill in the survey and provide your feedback or send us the topics that you're interested in to me via email. So if you look at the screen, you'll see the QR code. Please feel free to scan the QR code and fill in their survey. We're looking for the next topics that you're most interested in. And here is the agenda. So just to give you an idea of what to expect, there will be two discussion sessions. The first one will be with AJ Mack, the founder and CEO of Chain of Demand. We'll be talking about predicting inventory needs and how to leverage data analytics and AI to better manage inventory. And the second session will be having it with Felix, the co-founder of Refloat. We'll be talking about how to leverage opportunities in the fast-growing resale market. After that, there will be a Q&A session, and that will be open up to the floor to ask questions. So in the meanwhile, if you have any questions anytime, please feel free to send it to us on Zoom chat or send it to the email. You see my email on the screen as well, maggie.look@themills.com.hk. During the webinar, please appreciate if you could mute your microphone. Just a couple housekeeping notes. So if you want to ask questions, please feel free to click the chat button, and then you see the Zoom chat, and then feel free to type your questions there. And then we will actually answer the questions at the end in the Q&A session. Okay, cool. So let me stop sharing screen, and we would like to welcome AJ Mack, the CEO and co-founder of the Chain of Demand, to share with us in the first session. So in this session, we will be exploring how to predict inventory needs, how to leverage data analytics and AI to better manage inventory. To start with, hey, AJ, could you please tell us a bit about yourself and Chain of Demand, and what do you guys do?
Sure. Thanks so much, Maggie. My name is AJ Mack, founder and CEO of Chain of Demand. Chain of Demand is an AI analytics company, and we focus on helping brands and retailers to improve their profitability as well as sustainability. And we aim to do that with better sales predictions, recommendations, and data analytics, all focused on the fashion and retail industries. So prior to starting Chain of Demand, I actually spent 10 years in the fashion industry. I covered everything from supply chain, sourcing, product development, brand management, and most recently, digital transformation. So you could say that I was on the buy side, and now I'm on the sell side. And it's quite interesting to have that experience from both sides of the fence. And it was really through those 10 years, speaking to brands as well as suppliers, that we found that there was a huge need, a huge pain point for better analytics demand predictions. And the industry was basically relying on Excel to do this. And so we set out to take advantage of machine learning and all technology that is available to us today and to apply that and hopefully help the industry as a whole.
Cool. So from your observation, what are the challenges in the retail supply chain right now caused by the coronavirus?
So we've seen things changing very rapidly, especially in the supply chain and also the demand markets around the world. So in the past few weeks, I would say about a month ago, the main challenge in terms of supply chain was China being under lockdown. So because the provinces were locking down the residents and a lot of the factory workers were actually have went home for the Chinese New Year break, they couldn't get back to the factories and therefore really hindered the capacity and efficiency of all the suppliers in China. And as most of you know, the global supply chain is so integrated that if China cannot produce raw materials or fabrics for other producing countries, it really causes a big disturbance for everyone. And even then, even after the travel restrictions were starting to lax, there were still very low movements in all transportation modes in China. So on the right, you can see that even up until the middle of March, there were very little movement in terms of people getting back to work, and low movement really translates into low production. For the past 2 weeks, we have been seeing another challenge. And since China's supply chain has actually recovered in terms of capacity of back up to 60 to 80%, the problem now is that supply is greater than demand. And this is due to the virus hitting the demand markets in US, in Europe. And so the issue is no longer trying to solve the supply chain issues that are in China, but now Chinese suppliers are trying to solve this great difference between supply and demand. And part of the challenge with the demand markets is that the brands are trying everything they can to minimize their inventory in light of lower demand in the coming quarters. So everything that has not been cut in terms of fabric are basically being canceled. There are two prominent brands, New Look and Primark, that have been canceling all of the orders because a lot of their sales come from the UK. They don't have a significant online presence. And because Europe and the UK are so badly hit, we see that there are losses of about 200 million pounds in just a month. New Look is also the other company that has halted on all current and future productions, and unfortunately have to start laying off employees and offering them unpaid leave just to ease the impact a little bit. Another challenge that we have been seeing for those that are stuck with a lot of stock, they have been doing blanket markdowns across the board. So we've seen that with Nordstrom, everything is 25% off, 30% off. We see it with Nike, we see it with a lot of brands recently doing the same thing. So I think because of the supply chain challenges, because of the rapid change in demand, there are a lot of companies that need better data and better predictions for more targeted markdown strategies.
You're right. We are seeing that for many companies, there is the imbalance in supply and demand. So, what is your offering to the brands to help them through this stage?
Yeah, so we have different offerings, but I think in this time we've pinpointed two that we believe can create the most value and the biggest impact to brands. So we have two models that we use for predictions. On the left is the preseason model. So this is where we predict sales down to the SKU color and size 6 months before the season starts. And the goal of this is to help customers to optimize their cost of inventory and to minimize upfront capital that would be required. And our predictions for the preseason model averages about 75% accurate. And so as we talk about prediction accuracies, the way we calculate accuracy in this sense is if 100 units were predicted to sell and 75 was actually sold, or about 123 or so, then that would be a 75% accuracy. Our second model is the in-season model. And this is where we update our sales predictions on a weekly basis once the goods have started to sell. So we also do this down by the size and color with an improved average accuracy of 85%. And the goal of the in-season model is really to help minimize the cost of excess inventory. When you have goods that are projected to not sell well, knowing that earlier can help you start promoting them or moving the goods earlier and minimize the situation where you are stuck with the goods at your last month of sales and you basically have to mark it down 67%. And the main benefit of our models is that we can help our customers do it 168 times faster. Normally, it takes a planner or merchandiser about 2 weeks in Excel to take in all the data, crunch all the data that they have available before they can come to these major decisions of what goods to mark down or to reallocate. And the second main benefit is that we are about 30% more accurate in our predictions compared to the industry average. So these are the two main services that we offer. And just to share a little bit about how we make these predictions, we do look at a lot of different data sources, but we do only incorporate the ones that are relevant to your brands or markets so that we don't get a lot of noise and give you the best predictions. So the 5 major categories of data that we look at includes macro data, unemployment rates. This is a huge one, especially for this week, as you see unemployment applications in the US skyrocket. Look at consumer pricing indices, the stock market information. Online data would include the different holidays in different countries, social media, the local weather, temperature, humidity, search keywords. And we also include a set of our own proprietary data, which includes competitive analysis, image recognition, and market trends data. And what we would ask from our partners is a set of sales data, product data, and marketing data. So just on average, I would say the data we get from our customers accounts for about 30%, and the rest 70% are either our own data or external data that is collected and synthesized. And as Maggie mentioned earlier, we've been working around the clock to include coronavirus data into our models. And we were able to do this because our team of data scientists actually has previous experience in tracking pandemics. So leveraging their experience and our newest models, we've been able to take into account this data. And this data is also tailored to your specific markets and categories. So besides offline channels, we can also predict sales for online channels and wholesale models. And just to give you a preview of how our platform looks like and how our users gain value from it, we have here a screen of our preseason model predictions. So you will see all your styles you can filter by season or month or year or category or channel. And you'll have all the relevant styles down to the size and color. There are predictions on how much it will sell and ultimately our recommended purchase. So you can have very detailed data to help you make your decisions on how much of which styles I should be producing with my suppliers. And the screen for our in-season model, we offer monthly sales predictions, which we update them every week or daily if it's required. And every time we update, there will be new suggested actions, which would include which products need to be marked down, which products need to be restocked, or which products need to be reallocated to other channels or stores. Oops. Sorry about that. Yeah, so in terms of the two models and the two sets of recommendations that we offer, here's a timeline of when those information and predictions would be offered to our customers. Given this is a supply chain timeline for the autumn-winter 2020 season, we know that if we want to start sales at the latest in September, we work back and say goods have to be received in August, shipped in July, produced April, May, and June. So really, orders need to be placed in April, which is coming up very soon. And before those orders are placed, that's the first time we give our predictions from our preseason model. So you can optimize your inventory and also optimize your cash flow. And the in-season model comes in when the goods start to sell. Then that's where you get the weekly updated sales predictions and recommendations.
Right.
And that's basically how it works.
Well, so we see that you are actually collecting a lot of data points to make predictions. Maybe can you elaborate a little bit more on how it works in a more simple terms, like how you deal with the data?
Sure. So the process is basically 4 simple steps. And we start with a data study. That's basically where we would ask our potential customers for a subset of sample data. And we will use this data to firstly determine if the data is sufficient or the quality is up to a certain standard so that our models can actually help solve the brand's pain points. We will also identify areas with specific KPIs that we believe we can improve. So those would include sell-throughs, sell-through percentages, markdown amounts, and inventory turn ratios. And that would take about 2 weeks. And all we would need from brands and retailers is just a subset of sales, product, and marketing data. Once that's done, the second step is engaging in a pilot. And all we would need from the customers here would be 2 to 3 meetings, well, now Zoom meetings with your different stakeholders, users, so we can confirm with them on the scope and objectives for this pilot, and also to get a better understanding of their specific pain points and the way that they will use these predictions and data. So the pilot lasts about 8 weeks, where we do data cleaning and start with our model building and model adjustments on different parameters that are used for the models. And at the end of pilots, we present our results. If the results are in line with the objectives, then we will start offering a 30-day free trial of our platform with your data plugged in. And all we would need here is your feedback on using the platform. And the last step is a full engagement, where if you're happy with the trial period, we will start with an annual subscription plan.
Thanks, Asia. I think that's very clear on the process. And I think the brands and the retailers, they would be very interested to know, like, during this, how can they benefit from this solution?
Yeah, I think with regards to the current crisis, we've been doing some research with different companies, brands, and retailers, and we found that their top 3 priorities right now are optimizing cash, minimizing cost, and inventory. We'll also love to hear from the audience, either in the Q&A or afterwards, about your top priorities as well. But just based on those top 3 priorities, our predictions and recommendations can really help brands and retailers to reduce their upfront capital from buying tighter and more accurately. We can help reduce the excess inventory at the end of the season, which ultimately helps improve their margins. So we have a case study here, which we've done with a publicly listed apparel company. For this study, our prediction accuracy was at 83%. So we were predicting units sold by the SKU, and we were 83% accurate. But what that translated to were different recommendations on which stock to buy and how many. And based on those recommendations, we were able to show a reduction of upfront capital by 12%. So they were buying the cost of goods sold, which had to be paid much earlier in the season, was reduced. And because of that, we were also able to reduce the excess inventory that had occurred at the end of the season, and ultimately an increase of profits by 8% from reduced markdowns and excess inventory. So we believe that with good accuracy in our predictions and the recommendations that we give, we can really help reduce costs and also have a chance to increase margins at the same time. And because cash flow now is the #1 priority for many companies, we hope that with our services and our platform, we can help them to improve their cash flow as well.
That's good. Thank you. And lastly, I think for all the audience here, we would like to know, so what are some immediate next steps that perhaps the companies can take to get started now?
So I think everybody agrees that meetings for B2B topics have definitely slowed down a lot.
Right.
So in the age of no face-to-face meetings, we have actually created new products to help brands and retailers to take advantage of our analytics in the fastest way possible. So the first recommendation that we have is to contact us for a feasibility study on your data. And given the current crisis, we have decided that it would maybe most beneficial to offer this for free just to get things started quickly and with no barrier to entry. And with this study, we hope to firstly help identify areas where we can help them save costs and improve cash flow. So this is the first thing that we recommend to get started now. And we definitely look forward to having those conversations with companies that are interested after the webinar. The second thing is we've built a direct connections to online sales platforms. So if you are a omni-channel retailer and you have been selling your goods on e-commerce platforms, whether it be Amazon, Shopify, we can now plug in directly to your store's back end and get data that way. So we also have a specific model that caters to online sales. So we will apply that model onto this data so we can show the potential benefits as quickly as possible. The last thing is actually the newest thing that we've been working on is helping C-suite managers to collect the kind of data they need to make key decisions in the coming months. So based on your markets, based on the coronavirus, and based on your consumer groups, we can offer different analytics charts that we can update on a weekly basis. So you can have relevant information updated frequently to help you make the tough decisions that you need to make. So those are the three next steps that we will recommend. We also have a lot of helpful content in terms of in the form of white papers on our website and on our LinkedIn. So please feel free to take advantage of that content as well. And if there's any questions that you may have, please don't hesitate to contact me or my team on LinkedIn as well. And just to wrap up with 3 key takeaways. Our suggestion in this time for brands and retailers is to focus your open to buy dollars on bestsellers. Number 2, try and take into account as much data as you can, but you have to make sure that it is relevant, but also updated frequently. Thank you.
Thank you very much, AJ. So I think we all have a very good session with AJ on how chain of demand is able to actually incorporate the data, especially the coronavirus data, into the AI models. And I believe that would help brands to better predict the inventory needs, especially in the current situation. And this is very helpful and timely for all of us, especially the brands and retailers. So moving forward in the next session, we actually have invited Felix, the co-founder of Refloat, to share with us on how to explore new opportunities and tap into the fast-growing resale market. So let's welcome Felix. Thank you, AJ.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, perfect. Give me just a second. Here we are. Can you see my screen properly?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Well, so Felix, so to start off, shall we have you to quickly introduce yourself and perhaps tell us about Refloat? What is your business, and then how can you actually provide opportunities and help retailers?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Felix Winkler. I'm the co-founder and chief commercial officer of Refloat. And our business is involved in the secondhand market. So let me first start off by telling you a bit about our journey and how we end up building Refloat. The journey actually started back about 7 or 8 years ago, when my co-founder Stephanie built a platform in Singapore called Style Tribute, which is one of the local leader in secondhand market. And it's by running this platform where we were entering this market that we realize a change of trend, a change of consumer behavior towards vintage, and also identifying the opportunity for retailers to get into this business. So we had a number of discussions with local retail. We're interested in getting into the secondhand business. And this is where we came with the objective of bringing Resell as a service to retailers. So this is what Refloat does. We allow customers of brands or retailers to be able to resell their past purchases from the ecosystem of the brand or the retailer. Now, our approach is quite unique in the sense that we allow the resell to happen in the ecosystem of the brand, but the resell effectively happens on third-party platforms. So we allow the brand to own the customer journey and design this resell process with us, but we allow the brand to, or the retailer, to leverage the existing ecosystem. So effectively what happens is you're a customer of a brand or a multi-brand. Generally on the e-com of the brand or the multi-brand, you've got a section dedicated for the customer called My Account. And this is the illustration on the left of the screen, where are listed all your past purchases. We integrate ourselves in the form of a plugin, a little button, a bit like a PayPal button, next to that past purchase, which allows the customer to resell that item. So the customer will press that item whenever they want to resell. We capture the data of the product from the retailer's database to generate a listing. And that listing will be then pushed simultaneously on several third-party platforms. So you know about eBay, probably about Vestiaire Collective or The Real, but there are hundreds of these platforms around the world. And our position has been that the best way for brands to make the resale process effective is to leverage the traffic on those platforms. The other consideration has been that one of the issue for most brands and retailers is that they don't have any control on this gray market. They don't have any visibility on what's happening on the existing secondhand market. So our approach has been to, by connecting to this network of existing platform, we also allow brands and retailers to gain control on the flow of products that are pushed on these platforms. Now, the customer journey doesn't end here. When we bring that offering, we had in mind that it should be more than just a service. And you should view our model as something that integrates itself into the broader customer retention strategy of your brand or retail company. Why? Because we give an amazing trade-off to the customer when they resell an item through that model. So the customer press that button to resell. We list the product simultaneously on several platforms. The item is sold. The customer receives an email with a prepaid shipping label to send the item to the end buyer. And then once the sale is validated, we're going to give a great trade-off to the customer. We're going to tell them either you get paid in cash, say 100, or you get 120 in store credits with the brand. And so with this service, which is in line with current trends and desires of customers these days, you bring something of value, which is this additional return after the resale. And so this is something that you have to view in the broader marketing strategy of a brand or a multi-brand. And even further, you should look at it in the angle of the omni-channel strategy of the retail of the brand. Why? Because only customers who are registered can access that service. So this is again a great opportunity to bring customers to register in your loyalty program or register and in your system in general. Now, the value propositions are very straightforward. It's to allow the brands to finally monetize the secondhand market. But we've seen very interesting behaviors through the first deployments of the service. And these are changes in the basket size pre-purchase, because customers hesitate less when choosing in between the red dress or the blue dress, for example. And then the post sale resell behavior, where customer come back with store credits, they consistently use top up on top of these store credit. So there's a real financial opportunity behind this service. The second value proposition is around data, and this is something I touched on a few minutes ago. We've built an admin platform on which brands can visualize a number of data sets around secondhand transactions. And here the objective is really to allow brands to gain more visibility on this gray market, get a better understanding of what's happening outside their stores. But the greatest opportunity is really around the marketing that could be done around this service. So, as I said, it should be looked at something part of the global, the broader, omni-channel strategy. Only customers registered can access the service and get that amazing trade-off. So it's a fantastic opportunity to bring customer from offline to online. Then you've got a number of great call to action that you can build around this service to bring customers back to your platform. For example, this the template email on the right of your screen shows that there are new items available, new collections available. There's a message that could be said around, did you know you've had XYZ value locked into your wardrobe? If you were to resell XYZ, you could offer yourself your wish list or some items in the new collection. But beyond that, I think there's also a fantastic opportunity for a brand or retailer to present themselves as leader in sustainability, as a company that rewards shoppers to give a second life to their items, and I think that can have a very powerful message, and especially in the current context.
Right. So, given the current coronavirus situation, maybe can you share with us more about how is the secondhand market is doing?
Sure, absolutely. So first, a little background on the state of the secondhand market before the current events. It's a market that is absolutely booming at the moment. It's growing 20 times faster than traditional retail. We're talking about a $20 billion market, which will reach around 50 in the next 5 years. Some studies suggest that the secondhand market will become bigger than fast fashion. And you can see the trend in younger generation. Vintage is cool. The consumer behavioral change has already happened. This is not something on the fringe where you've got a few people who need to make pocket money, resell some items, or people that can't afford full price, just look for a good deal. This is generational. This is something that is part of a statement from consumers to buy more responsibly. And this is very much, you can very much see this in the data surrounding the profile of sellers and buyers. It's 1 out of 3 millennials has already bought or sold something on the secondhand market this year. What's even more striking is the characters of the resellers. it's not people who are trying to make a buck. It's really people who are trying to clear their wardrobe. The vast majorities of sellers are people who have a lot of money, working women, who are basically financing new purchases by clearing part of their wardrobe. So there's a practical aspect as well to the resale process. And so the customers, if I'm speaking to a luxury brand, my first advice around or comment around the secondhand market is to say your customers, the full price buyers of luxury items, are the main sellers on the secondhand market. And this is why there's an opportunity to connect with them directly without leaving this opportunity to third-party platforms who are making the money on the resales of your items. Now, the current context is quite interesting. So these are articles that were published in between last weekend and today, from Business to Fashion, or Asia Review. And we've seen from our network a growth of about 30% in transactions in the last month or so. So I think there's, first off, a increase in sales, probably from people who are not working, and this sort of contradict what I just said, because on a short period of time, I think there's going to be a few people who are going to be selling more due to financial needs. But I think the global context will emphasize the need to rationalize our consumer behaviors and the way we consume fashion in general. And this is only going to, I think, increase the traffic and dynamic on this market. So my perception on what's going on is that this is a great opportunity, which is ahead of us.
That's very helpful. Perhaps to wrap this up, can you share a bit on what is the opportunity that Refloat can actually help brands to capture right now at this moment?
Sure. So this is something that we've started fairly recently, unrelated to what's going on. But I think in the current context, we started to get a little more demand. And I think in this context, it makes a lot of sense. It's dealing with dead stock. So with a few of our clients, we've started pushing on our network on inventory. Our proposition is rather straightforward. We take the stock on consignment. We take care of the fulfillment. And what we really bring of value is that instead of buying in bulk, we're capable of selling the items as unique pieces. And we're really putting in place a strategy to get the best price as possible. And we're capable of leveraging more than 35 marketplaces on which to sell. So there's a great opportunity for us to really push for the best price out there. And in this current context where I think a lot of retailers or brands are going to be struggling to deal with stock, this is quite a clever approach to move some stock that might not be easily moved otherwise.
Thank you, Felix. I think that's very helpful. And if the brands or retailers are interested in that, I believe they can actually reach out directly to you, right? And your contact
Absolutely.
is on the screen right now. Okay, so I think in this session, we learned about new ways to capture sales, especially in the current coronavirus situations, and capture sales in secondhand market would be a good way to go. Thank you again, Felix, for sharing with us. And
You're
now,
welcome.
is actually the Q&A session right now. Let me just quickly share how you can type your questions. Okay, so this is the Q&A session, so we will actually open it up to the floor for any questions. Please feel free to send over your questions on Zoom chat or send an email to me. My email is actually on the screen, maggie.look@thenews.com.hk. And we have a few incoming questions. So I think the first one is to AJ first. Is your model applicable to a specific industry or any industries? What is the difference in data you need to collect?
So we started out in fashion, but we've been successful in extending our models to other retail industries. There are differences in the specific data that we collect with different industries, but they mostly fall under the same three main categories: sales data, product data, and marketing data. Just to give an example, we started out with fashion apparel. We've then extended into footwear and accessories. We're now doing beauty, cosmetics, and most recently, groceries as well.
Okay, thank you, AJ. And then the next one we have is interesting. How hygienic are secondhand clothes while coronavirus is around?
It's a very good question. This is something that is quite fairly standard from the resell process itself. It's the first condition that is condition guideline that is given by any marketplace when you resell secondhand. The items should be dry cleaned and in good condition, and if they're not, sellers could suffer some penalties. The check of the items is most of the time done through the marketplace. So the item, when an item is sold, it's not directly sent to the end buyer, but rather sent to the marketplace who sold the item. They will check the condition of the product, i.e. making sure that the descriptive corresponds to the current condition of the product. And this is where also the item might have an additional cleanup. Now, in terms of actually getting rid of COVID-19 traces, I'm afraid I'm not an epidemiologist, and I'm not really qualified to tell you if there's any risk here.
Right. For the next one, we have, in this logistics environment and the limitation on shipping delivery, how is resales impacted? Perhaps both AJ and Felix, feel free to take it.
I can, AJ, if you don't mind, I can.
No, please go ahead.
I can mention something. Well, it's a bit of an issue with price competitive transporters in Europe. I don't know about Asia. I'm based in London, and I mostly know about the logistics out there. A number of courier partners that we use provides a system where you use drop-off points, and the drop-off points are often shops, and obviously in the current context, if not all the shops, but most of the shops are closed. So players who were providing quite competitive pricing are actually shut down in a lot of countries. We've seen some marketplaces actually stopping their operation because of that. We're still capable of covering all of Europe with courier partners like DHL or DPD because they've got at-home drop-off. But all of this should get back to normal in the next few weeks, I suppose.
So just to add on to the topic of logistics, Our recommendations actually takes into account the supply chain lead times when we recommend a certain style that should be replenished. So before we were worried about the lead time for sea freights, but what we've seen recently is a lot more companies are flying, or suppliers have been using air freight to fly the goods in because of the time that was the 3 weeks where the factories couldn't produce. And because of that, we've seen the cost of air freight almost double. So that's something interesting that we found, and just thought I would share with you.
Cool. So the next one is for Refloat. Can you mention some of the brands who utilize Refloat?
Absolutely. We originally started with small independent designers, and then our first big launch was with a department store in Singapore called Club 21, where we first deployed the service with VIP clients. And now we are going to launch the service technically next month, but it might be pushed to May. Obviously, it might conflict. The brands don't want it to conflict with the current news cycle. But we've got really exciting brands with which we're launching the service, and this include COS, which is part of the H&M group, Balenciaga, Bash, Net-a-Porter, just to name a few.
Right, thank you. So the next one is for chain of demand. For those brands that chain of demand helped in, what was the need of the brand?
I'd say the most common solution that our customers look for is to minimize their markdowns and to improve sell-throughs. So those are the two main metrics that we have been asked to improve. And so far, we have been able to show markdown reductions of up to 25% and improve sell-through rates by over 20%.
Right, thank you. And I think it's about time, so perhaps we'll have the final question for both AJ and Felix. What is the final message that you would like to give to the audience today?
Felix, you want to go ahead first?
Sure. Look, my take around what's going on is that, this has been brewing for a while, but I think retail has to reinvent itself. And with the current events, digital is obviously taking, will take a predominant part in retail activity. And I think with what's going on today, it's really an opportunity to try new models and rethink the way we consume. And I sincerely hope that our society will really consider the current event as a wake-up call to really reconsider the way we operate.
I really agree with that point that Felix just mentioned, especially for the fashion industry. We are long due for a major change in the way we operate. And I think there are always opportunities in every situation, and hopefully this would be one of the turning points for the industry. And my final message is that nobody knows what's going to happen in the next few months, especially during Black Swan events such as this one. So what we always believe is the best thing to do is to get all the relevant data that you possibly can, so you can make better decisions, and even better, share it with your supply chain, share it with your whole value chain, because it's through this flow of data, transparency of data, can then all the suppliers, all the brands, and everything in between can work together to find a solution to fight this war. So I hope this will definitely be one of those opportunities for us to do that as an industry.
Sounds good. Thank you again. Thank you, AJ and Felix, for sharing with us today. And today we talked about mainly how to use retail tech to manage inventory and tap into the resale market. We see that some questions were asking for the presentations. Don't worry. After this webinar, we will actually have a blog post mentioning the key insights from the two speakers. And we will also have a link with the recording of this webinar. We will highlight some key points. So feel free to check it out later on. And thank you again, the audience, for your participation. And this is the first talk in the Combating Coronavirus series. And going forward in April, we will also be hosting a webinar once a week. Please follow us on social media and also subscribe to our newsletter. And we'll keep you posted on the upcoming webinars and also the blog post and also the recording of this webinar. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us a message. You can scan the QR code on the screen right now or send me an email. If you have questions for AJ and Felix, their contacts are also on the screen right now. Please feel free to screen cap and send them an email. Thank you very much. Stay well and stay safe.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you so much.